Hello and welcome to Painting with Stephen episode 24. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're watching this, and let's get right into it. So, back to the old camera angle. I find that it's not as distracting as the one I was using last episode, so I've reverted back to where I started. But sometimes that's what trying new things is all about, is you try them to find out that they don't work. So a reminder to everyone that my Etsy page is live. If you watch any of my painting videos and find that it's not on my Etsy page and that you're interested in purchasing it, just drop a comment down on YouTube and I will endeavour to list it on Etsy, and if it piques your interest, then great, and obviously if you want to support the channel, that's fantastic. I thank you in advance, but if you're just here for me rambling and painting, that's great too. So yeah, just to let you know of its existence again, and I will put the link in the description. Also, although unrelated to painting, I have just released a 2-volume folk compendium called the Celtic Folk Compendium, Music of the Celts Throughout the World, which you can find on Amazon. The first volume explores Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Brittany, the Isle of Man, Cornwall, and the second volume explores the diaspora countries, so Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, and yeah, I'm very, very proud of it. It's been a labour of love, obviously as a historian who also loves music and performs music, who has a passion for folk music, who's also very, very passionate about Scottish history and Celtic history in general. I really enjoyed writing it, and if that's something that you think would pique your interest, please check that out and find it on Amazon. I'll link it in the description just in case anybody's interested. But especially my friends in America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, you should check out the book. Obviously a lot of your musical traditions and folk traditions come from us and the original Celtic peoples in Scotland and Ireland and Wales, so it's a very, very interesting part of all of our shared heritage, so you should definitely check it out. So to the actual painting itself, I enjoy painting this one. I painted the sky in the first week. I wanted it to be one of my sort of moonlit skies, very sort of dark, symbolistic, still lots of umber in the sky, but I also wanted to add in some stars. Same way that I did last episode, if you checked in for episode 23, using the sort of watered down paint technique where you spray it on with the brush to get that crazy, chaotic design like you do with real stars. And yeah, I like how this one turned out. I wanted it to be a sort of enchanting waterfall scene with ruins, and I also added in a castle, and so it instantly got me thinking about the lore behind the painting and what I wanted the background, or the backstory I should say, for the painting to be. And I sort of decided that it would be cool if there was sort of an ancient, like almost forerunner civilization that had been lost to time, that then a new sort of civilization, or maybe even the same civilization but hundreds and hundreds of years later, rediscovered the site and reutilised it for a guard post. But then all sorts of like creepy goings on, and maybe even some like enchanting or magic or supernatural things went on, but the soldiers that man the actual castle that is sort of more modern or contemporary to the time. By this I don't mean our time, of course. I mean, and at the time of what would be the present for who is manning the castle, they still experience all of these haunting goings on. So yes, when I was painting it, this is sort of what I ended up wanting it to be. This is sort of the lore that I started to think about in my head. So I painted the sky the first week. Obviously, as with all my paintings, I'll include the lore in the description. The little story that goes behind each painting. Most of the time I actually have no idea what the story's going to be until I get to the YouTube making part of it. But I always like to include little stories for my paintings because they're all meant to be fantasy-esque. So yeah, I really enjoy, adding little backstories for all the worlds that I paint. But yeah, I'm really enjoying painting waterfalls. I know I can't actually remember the number of which episode it was, but I remember it was called something like had crypt in the name, I believe, or cairn. It was something cairn or crypt or something, but it had a sort of cosmic sky, and it had a cairn, and then it had a waterfall, and I liked how that one turned out. So I decided, yeah, I'm gonna do another waterfall, but with a completely different setting, a completely different compositional layout. Going back to, I think we've stressed this point so much on this channel now at this point. If you've watched any of my videos beyond the 2-minute mark, you'll have heard me ranting on about laying out your composition, and how this doesn't just apply to painting or music. This applies to any in a way, it's a microcosmic example. For example, planning your composition is a microcosmic example of discipline in general, in any art form or any sort of regimen where you need to consistently work. If you go to the gym, you can't be bothered, but you force yourself anyway because it's part of your lifestyle. A composition, I think, is a huge part of that. It takes the guesswork and the sporadicism out of your workload. It takes it out of your painting process, and so what you'll be left with is something that you can consistently go back to and know where you left off. Now you see, when you feel inspired, which is maybe, I don't know, 1 in every million times you're ever going to paint, okay, when you feel really inspired and ready, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to pick up my brushes and I'm just going to bang a painting out. This is what I used to do when I painted in one session. It would all be done in one session. I don't know, that to me is not indicative of yes, you can produce some very cool evocative works that way, but I think the problem with it is that if you're getting into a serious routine of painting, oftentimes it can get very, very tiring doing it that way. You can't just leave and then come back. When you've laid out your composition, you can do that. So for example, you can go, I'll do sky week 1, waterfall week 2, like I've done here. You can walk away from it, and subconsciously your mind will be working on even the motor mechanisms needed to paint the next part of the painting in your sleep. The mind is so incredibly powerful, and people think of the mind as set in stone, but it's quite the opposite. It's like putty all the time. It's been constantly shaped. It's adapting to the stressors that you put on it, neurologically, chemically, and physically. And it's just like any mechanism in the body, like hypertrophy, you know, or like autophagy. It's dependent on your inputs, and it's dependent on your life choices. And so the amount of autophagy, for example, that goes on is dependent on what you're doing, how much exercise you're doing, how much you're, you know, in a calorie restricted diet or a net deficit. You know, these things have massive impacts on the body, and so does what you decide to do. For example, painting, music, literature, these sort of creative states put your mind in a very, very unique place between higher transcendatory purpose and motor skills. You need both to pull off, and both need to be actively worked on. So when you start something like this, you need to consistently work on it and see it through. Your mind knows that, even on a subconscious level, and it's helping you do it. It's going, well, you know, you've done water 1,000 times now, so for this next part you'll be able to, you know, utilize those motor functions that you've learnt the previous times in this way, and that's how it's going to happen this time when you're painting this painting. All of these things do add up. Trust me, it's better to have composition, you know. And I don't know whether anyone would be interested in this. If anybody would be interested in this, leave a comment down below about whether, you know, even the sketching process that I do, whether when I tone the canvas with an umber, and then actually I could show you what my compositional process is, where I make up scenes or take inspiration from other paintings and other things, and then merge them with, you know, made up stuff, and, you know, just all sorts of stuff. Getting that graphite sketch down from get-go is such an important part of the process, because it means that you can literally walk away. You know, you can, you know, rail a line of cocaine, or go and do a barnyard dance, or go out with in-laws, or go and do whatever. And then you can come back and the painting's still going to be sitting there. You know exactly when you left off. Okay. Obviously I'm kidding about illicit drug usage. That's not indicative of any sort of progress in the art world, because it destroys your brain, and your brain is the most valuable asset you have in life. You need to protect it at all costs. You need to nurture it. You need to take that Play-Doh, that Play-Doh with a PhD, which is your brain, and you need to shape it and morph it and constantly stimulate it, so that it is in a position to constantly be creating new synapses, constantly having new neurons firing, creating new neural pathways. That's what you need to do. Obviously, this is the chemical, biological way of looking at things. There is a spiritual side to this discussion. I'm a deeply spiritual person, but realistically, both are true and can be true. There is no duality between the two. They are synergic. They are one. But yeah, this was a really fun painting to paint. You know, as you can see, I'm doing this little Greek temple up there, and I'm doing a tree. You know, it's funny because I think, you know, going back to this idea that we've also discussed on this channel before about schemas, and about a tree must be green, you know, water must be blue. No, see, that's not accurate. And especially on a moonlit night, for example, a lot of the time you'll only see a silhouette of a tree, which is pretty much pitch black, actually, when you look at it and you analyse the colour. I didn't go down that route this time, I have to confess. I did add some very muted greens in just to bring some intrigue, some colour intrigue to that part of the scene. I could have left it grey, just to, if I really wanted to go down a moody, tonalisty, symbolisty route where everything was very washed out of colour, but I chose not to. I chose to add some green in, albeit very muted. However, watch when I do the waterfall, what colours I decide to use. Okay. Here's what most people don't understand, especially at the beginner stage, okay? The clouds, right? The temple, the tree, the cliffs. Every single thing you see on the canvas, apart from the blues of the sky, is utilising 3 colours. Okay? 3 colours, that's it. Right? M. Francis McCarthy, we were actually discussing this on one of his videos in the comment section, because I follow Michael and his painting, and he talks about a lot of this sort of stuff. He uses far more colours than me, to be fair, but even still, I think he brought up the facts in one of his videos about the best friend of art stores are beginner painters, because they'll go in and they'll buy half the shop. And you also see people, and I used to be one of these people too, if you're self-taught and you'll ask, for example, people like Michael or Stuart Davis, or any of these, or me eventually, if I have a build up a following of people that want to ask me stuff or whatever, and a beginner artist will ask things like, what colour did you use for this? They'll say things like, what colour combination did you utilise to make that tree? And then they'll go out and buy that exact paint and mix it the exact same way to try and get the exact same result. Now, I know it doesn't sell to say this, okay? You can sell product and you can sell courses and online tuitions and books and stuff like that by pretending that there's an absolute exact science to this. And maybe some people do think that there's an exact science to it, and there is, to a certain extent, a lot of thought that goes into this. But the thing is that a lot of the time, you can pretty much make do with like 4 colours on your palette. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, a lot of people do teach that sort of thing where it's like the Zorn palette, where, and it's pretty much utilising like almost like an inkjet printer. Like the whole idea of even taking these colours and just turning them into every other colour. But I'm not even talking about that really. I'm more talking about the fact that beginner painters will think that there's a secret colour out there that's like a sky colour. Do you know what I mean? That's how you paint a sky. It's the sky colour. Where's this magic secret colour where it's going to make me paint a sky better, because it's the exact colour that I need, that all of these master painters have, that I don't have, that's going to make me paint a sky. Where's the rock colour? I need this rock colour that everybody's utilising. How do I mix this magical, mysterious, enigmatic colour of the rock? You see what I'm saying? The answer to those questions is, firstly, trial and error, and second of all, it almost doesn't even really matter. Like, I know that almost sounds like a ridiculous cop-out answer, but I mean, look at Van Gogh, okay? Now, I know this is a totally different style of painting, Monet, right? Who's painting fucking, lakes with purples and greens and oranges and all sorts in it. That's not watercolor, is it? Right? You know, I mean, if you look at Van Gogh's paintings of Starry Night, you know, where everything's moving around and swirling about, you know, as if he's taken some sort of psychedelic, maybe he had, or maybe he just had mercury poisoning, or absinthe poisoning, you know, from the copper and the vats and absinthe, but whatever. The point here is that, you know, did the sky really look like that? No. He's getting creative with his color usage. That's it. Simple as that. You know, I mean, there's no magic sky color, right? And if there was, like, you're not ever gonna get the same result. Okay, you're never ever gonna get the same result as, for example, Michael, you know, and Francis McCarthy. Like, for example, if you go, right, how are you mixing that? And he goes, well, I'm using ivory black, and I'm using you know, freaking cadmium yellow, and I'm using this and I'm using that. And then you go out and you try and paint the exact same thing, and you try and mix his colours. You're not going to get the same result. And a lot of that is because of the fact that maybe you haven't spent the hundreds and hundreds of hours pouring into experimenting with what colours get you what, and, you know, all sorts of, you know, how you're using it, how you're contrasting it with other colours. There's all sorts of things that go into why you will not get the same result. Now, what is the point to all this? The point to all this is you don't need to go out, right, and buy tons of fancy paints, tons of specific kinds of paints. You know, I need a Naples yellow. Do you know what I mean? I need a peach pink, or I need a flesh pink, or I need a mountain mixture from Bob Ross to paint mountains. No, you don't. Right? If you want to paint a mountain, right, mix a mountain colour, right? It can be any sort of grey, right? Realistically, like, do you know what I mean? And this also leads you into conversations about the dirty palette, okay? And the dirty colour. Look at John Singer Sargent. Look at Rembrandt. Look at, you know, Arnold Böcklin. Look at all of these creators of works in the past, okay? Do you see any extremely clean colour? No. Because chances are pretty much every painting is it's almost synergic, in the sense that, see, when you just mix like a whole ton of colours, almost utilising the colours you've already mixed, it almost naturally works out to be organically synergic together, you know? Dirty colour is good. Mixing all these weird, interesting colours and getting all these dirty and gritty and earthy tones and muted tones and all of these things, you know, it's certainly a hell of a lot more interesting than, you know, buying, let's say, a colour and using it out the tube, unless you want this super saturated thing. But, you know, it's certainly more interesting than, oh yeah, I'll go out and get a mountain mixture and I'll use that to make all of my mountains. Nah, you know, it just doesn't work that way, right? But the thing is, yeah, I mean, that weird, I don't even know what it is. It's sort of like a viaduct, amphitheatre, freaking weird, like, could be like crypts, or God knows what it is. I have no idea what those sort of weird, tunnely, mysterious holes are, you know. I don't know, that I'm painting right now. Something cool, anyway, you know. Something mysterious. Those colours that I'm using are the exact same colours that I would paint a rock in, you know. There's nothing special to it. I mean, so if I go out and go, oh, what's a castle colour? How do I mix a castle colour? How do I mix a moon colour? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to make any sense. It doesn't. You're not ever going to find a clear-cut answer to these questions. That's the thing, and you only learn by experience. So you need to just. Look at that waterfall, right? The waterfall is also utilising the exact same colours as everything else. It's literally raw umber, Payne's grey, and white. And notice I'm not saying flake white hue, or titanium white, or, do you know what I mean? Or any other type of white. White, it can be any white, realistically. Like, I know that things like flake white hue are slightly different from titanium white, okay? I know that they react slightly differently to all the other paint, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they do. But realistically, it's like guitar tone. It's like, again, going back to music, right? It's funny, isn't it, that, for example, I need to buy a Gibson Les Paul and a Marshall stack to get this exact tone. See if I want to sound, I need to sound like Tony Iommi, so I need to go out and buy a Gibson SG guitar and a Laney amplifier and get a tube screamer and set it at this tone. It needs to be this brand of tube screamer. Now I need to go get this. No, you don't actually. Right, yeah, I completely understand that, different bits of gear, different guitars, different amplifiers all give you a certain sound. How it's recorded, how it's mastered gets you a different sound. It's all true, but realistically, you can get any humbucker guitar, dial it in right, and it will probably sound pretty much the same. Especially to a non-guitar nerd, right? It's the same with painting. Yeah, okay, you may be able to get, if you're doing forgeries and you want to forge a painting that's exactly like Monet, you might need to do some thorough research into the exact pigments that were available at the time, the exact oils that Monet was using, the exact techniques that he utilised to paint, the exact techniques of Turner. Oh, he used washes. He watered down his oils and then used washes of oil to mimic watercolor paints, and yeah, that's all true and very, very cool to know and to utilize in your own painting, your own techniques. But experimentation and just trial and error is what's going to get you to a place where you can actually know these things, right? Like, you're never ever going to find this magic panacea or this magic solution or this magic thing that's going to give you Tony Iommi's tone, or Metallica's Load tone, or what was the organ tone that Ray Manzarek was using in The Doors on LA Women. Oh, let's go out and look at and get all this fucking gear that costs $5,000 to utilize, Oh, how do I paint like Monet? How do I paint like Titian? You're just not gonna ever be able to replicate them. Not that I'm saying that you're not good enough. Anyone's good enough, as long as you apply yourself and want to do that style of painting and stuff like that. But it's trial and error. It's all trial and error. You have to try, see what works, see what doesn't work, reapply, remotivate, reanalyze situations. You have to constantly, thousands of times, try things that don't work in order to find out what does work. It's just the way it is. And this is something, again, see things like this, it doesn't exactly sell you online courses, right? Because online courses and buy my tuition, like, if I'll teach you how to paint, I'll teach you how to play guitar, I'll do this, I'll do that. What it's selling you is the idea that they are the custodian of secret knowledge that is out with your ken, okay? out with your comprehension, right? And in order to gain access to this secret hidden pool of knowledge, okay, for you to suckle on the teat of knowledge that I have that you don't, right, or someone else has and you don't, you need to buy my online course. Okay? And that is gonna solve your problems, okay? And that's how you sell merchandise. You know, and it's a freaking smart business model, and it works. You know, we've talked about on this channel before Bob Ross, Bill Alexander, Jerry's Artorama, all of these people that sell a way of painting. You need to buy my liquid white, and then we'll use the liquid white and put it on the canvas, and then we'll paint wet on wet with my liquid white. You need to get my brand though. Go and freaking buy my brand of liquid white on my store, and then go and buy mountain mixture from my store. That's how you make money. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I wish I could do it. But no, in seriousness, I think what's really fascinating about it is it actually shows, in a way, the move from society truly adoring art, or art being a centerpiece of why a civilization exists to create art, to art being more of an entertainment commodity. What's so intriguing about it, and this is, I don't know if anybody's gotten this far, right? You know, leave a comment about what you think about this. The fascinating thing about, for example, Bob Ross, right, is that nobody was buying Bob Ross paintings because they were Bob Ross paintings and, you know, collecting them like an art collector would. Nobody was doing that. Nobody was buying Bob Ross paintings and going, I have a Bob Ross painting. This is a piece of high art that I'm going to cherish and put in a museum or hang up in my wall. That has an artistic statement, a profound artistic statement that needs to be said. What Bob Ross was doing was, he wasn't selling the paintings. He wasn't moving the paintings. He was moving merchandise. He was moving how to paint. He was selling the idea of being a painter. Now, isn't that clever? Isn't that a clever thing? You're not selling, you know, the paintings themselves, because we now live in a society that's bereft of, you know, like almost artistic need. Like it's almost like, you know, there is no artistic purpose to society anymore, and so we're selling the hobby. We're not selling the art, we're selling the hobby. Now, that is very, very fascinating to me. It's also very sad in a way. I don't think that you know, I don't think it's wrong. Like this, you know, as in, like, I think someone like Bob Ross or Bill Alexander or any of these people, they're trying to make their passion into a business, and I think that's phenomenal. I think that's great. That's what you should be doing, if you can. So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Far from it. But I think it's fascinating that that's occurred. And it does make you question in a way. You know, again, like when a society loses its belief in art and doesn't even really want to collect art anymore, what does that mean for all of us? What does that mean for art in general? I don't know. But yeah, no, I think it's very, very interesting stuff. It's very, very interesting stuff. God, what a way to end the video, huh? On this sort of philosophical end note. This this pondering But yeah, anyway, we all need to sell shit to survive, don't we? We need to move paintings, we need to move merchandise. In order to be artists, that's what you need to do. So yeah, you need to adapt to the modern world. Absolutely. You know, absolutely. And that's what these people were doing. They were adapting to the modern world first. And that's the end result. You know, and I'm pretty happy with it. You can see the stars in the sky, the moon, you know, the sort of foliage, these creepy, weird, like almost like tombs or, you know, like aqueducts or something. You know, the water coming out of the holes and the waterfall and the mists, and so yeah, it's pretty fun. It's good. And then you've got this castle as well in the background. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. And I love waterfalls. There's something about running water that just excites me. It just gets my imagination instantly going. It just instantly gives me this excitement in my soul. And it's interesting because spirits are meant to travel using running water as pathways, aren't they? So spirits are meant to, you know, like travel the mortal world on rivers and waterfalls and utilising running water. So that's interesting. Maybe that's why they certainly do have a supernatural element to them anyway, don't they? Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and tune in for episode 25. Goodbye.